When we look at primary elections versus general elections, first thing to understand is that a primary election is for the selection of a candidate for a party, and a general election is for the election of a candidate to become the office holder. So in presidential politics, we hold the primaries for the Republicans and the Democratic Party, and they pick their nominees, and then in the general election, those two nominees face off to actually win the office of president. I want to talk about three types of primaries that exist in our system. First, you have the open primary. This is one that allows people to cross party lines, for independents to come in and vote. On the day of the election, you go in and you select which primary you'd like to participate in, the Republican or the Democratic Party primary. The closed primary is one where you have to be a registered member of the party in order to participate, and that's a decision you need to make before election day, which party you want to be a registered member of and which primary you want to participate in. Most states have closed primaries because the parties are in control of the primary system and it's their process for selecting their nominees, and the closed primary is the purest way of doing that. An experiment was done with what's called a blanket primary, where they put every candidate on the ballot at the same time. So you would have Mitt Romney, Newt Gingrich, Rick Perry, and Barack Obama all on the same ballot during the primaries. It was declared unconstitutional in the state of California when we used it from 98 to 2000, and we haven't seen it since. Now, if we're talking about presidential politics, there are two key electoral contests that really matter. There's the Iowa caucus, which is the first in the nation electoral contest. And a caucus is a little bit different than an election. What happens in the caucus is it's a meeting, usually in a church or a school gymnasium. People all throughout the state of Iowa gather in these meeting halls, and they discuss the election. They talk about their preferences for candidates, and it's a long, drawn-out, ongoing debate, really. And the Iowa caucus is important not so much for the size of Iowa and its electoral significance, but for the fact that it is first. It's the first chance for candidates to display their actual voting prowess, and it can make or break a campaign. If someone performs under expectations, then they get a negative media spin. If they exceed expectations, then they get a lot of good publicity. And when we talked about horse race journalism earlier on in the course, this is one of the things we were talking about, the following of polls and making too much out of an electoral outcome. Right after Iowa, we have the first in the nation primary, and that's New Hampshire. And again, this is a momentum builder for candidates. It's a chance for candidates that fell behind in Iowa to reassert themselves as a candidate. So it's a nice piece for our electoral process in picking a presidential candidate. Now, when we're actually nominating the president, what's happening is when you're voting in these primaries and caucuses, you're actually selecting delegates to the party conventions. And these delegates are the ones who are going to cast the final vote to pick the nominee for the party. In the Democratic Party especially, there's this feature called a superdelegate, and the superdelegate are your elected officials all throughout the Democratic Party in this country. And they essentially have the power to swing the election for one candidate or the other. The big example of this is 2008, when Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama were really close in delegates. The number of primaries each one had won was very close, and their total popular vote was a very slim margin. And there was an appeal to the superdelegates, the elected officials of the Democratic Party, to step in and award the race to Hillary Clinton. The mindset of the superdelegate feature is that if there's a problem with the nominee that has been picked by the caucuses and the primaries, that it can be quote-unquote undone by the decision of the superdelegates. And as we're talking about these delegates, it's important to understand with the party convention, a person does not become the official nominee of their political party until the convention nominates them. And that's a very important feature as far as kicking off the fall campaign and getting us underway till the final stretch run to vote for President of the United States.